Early chapter. This is the very beginning of the book. Be the sexual person you want to be. And it starts out with a quote from Alfred Kinsey. There is nothing more characteristic of sexual response than the fact that it is not the same in any two individuals. Kinsey. It's like my dad. Just as they tell us that every snowflake is one of a kind, no two people have exactly the same sexuality. Sexuality is made up of so many components: sexual orientation, gender identity, erotic preference, physical response to stimulation, partner preferences, to name just a few. That we are all precious little snowflakes. You are a sexual individual. Let that sink in. An individual. Most of the people we talk to about sexual problems or worries have gotten the message that there's such a thing as being normal sexually. Much fear and shame about sex comes from this notion: am I normal? It may be the single most damaging concern shared by people who have not managed to feel good about and accepting of their own sexual desires. In fact, and here's the great news, there are many, many ways to express your sexuality naturally, and there's no one way that everybody has to do it. Let's hear it for freedom and pleasure. And that goes into the chapter called You Are a Sexual Individual. Let us count the ways. Let's start with gender. You're a male, a female, or a transgender male or female. You're cisexual, transsexual, or you're intersex. Besides your actual gender, another element for most of us is where we fit on the continuum of masculinity to femininity. You're a female and you feel feminine. Or maybe you actually feel more masculine. Not as if you're a male in a female body, but rather, as we say in San Francisco, more butch of center, or tomboyish. You can be straight, i.e. heterosexual, and still be butch. If you don't feel a lot of pull one way or another on the feminine to masculine continuum, you might identify as androgynous. That's an old school 70s word. Or you might not even care or think about it. Some people identify as gender queer. They don't feel gendered in a socially normative way, even though they might not identify as transsexual. That's one element. What's next? How about sexual orientation? Generally, this is understood to mean the continuum of heterosexuality to bisexuality to homosexuality, straight, bi, or gay. Sexual orientation says nothing about our actual erotic preferences, what kind of sex we like to have. It only speaks to the gender of the person we might want to have sex with. Asexuality may also be a sexual orientation. It means that you don't want to have sex with men, women, or anybody else. Asexuals do not necessarily feel no sex drive whatsoever. Some asexually identified people may masturbate, for instance, but they do not want to have partnered sex. And some people, such as sexologists and even other asexuals themselves, might reserve this term only for people who don't experience sexual desire or want to have sex in the first place. Even these asexuals, though, may want an intimate partner, but not a partner with whom they have sex. Speaking of partners, another way people differ is in the ways they want to have partners in their lives. Of what gender? Monogamous or non-monogamous? Or even more casual than that? Polyamorous, with more than one committed partner, married or unmarried? As we write this, not everyone can get married even if they want to do so. Yay! An edit that needs to be made! Awesome, Shar! See, we knew we'd have to edit this thing. We actually killed ourselves over that line. We were like, but what is the Supreme Court going to do? But we've got to stop writing the book. Oh my God, anyway.
It's still true in Brazil.
Right. A partner for life, serial monogamy, living together or living separately. And then there's sex in all of its elements. We've got a lot of these in this book. We're speaking here about the kind of physical sex you enjoy. So many variations abound. Solo or with another person or persons. And do you like the same things in each case? Or do your desires or responses change from person to person? Do you like to kiss forever? Do you hate soft touch and only like firm handling? What about BDSM? Is that your thing? And if so, are you a top, bottom, or a switch? Any role play preferences? Do you like erotic garments? And if so, what kind? Adult toys? And what kind? Do you tend to be more of an initiator or more responsive to others' initiation? One thing we can tell you with assurance, when we use the phrase have sex in this book, we are not talking solely about intercourse or even vaginal or anal insertion with a finger or a toy. There are way more kinds of sex than that, so just remember that if we're discussing something that sounds like just foreplay to you, it might be another person's primary way of enjoying their sexuality. There are countless ways to be a sexual person, with a multitude of choices at various points, preferences, and ways to identify, and not to mention elements that are seemingly set for life. All these elements inform and interact, swirling together to bring forth a blizzard of sexy snowflakes.